All right? And then what happens? Abraham didn't get married until when?
Sarah died.
Until she died. All right? So when you read it, it's cases of it, but I want to keep in mind of what that's really about. All right? Now, when it's time for the build a nation, Jacob, of course, we've built a nation. All right? We built a nation. All right? He had 2 wives, which was from whence the 12 tribes come from. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. All right? So, yeah, that was it. He had 2 wives, building a nation. Now, let's move on. Did Joseph have 2 wives? In Egypt? No. Did Moses have 2 wives?
Yeah.
He had 2 wives, but he never had 2 wives in Egypt. Never had 2 wives in Egypt. So think about it. He knew in the land is captivity. He said, I'm not going to have 2 wives in there. He had one when he was
there,
a military leader. You could history, he was a military leader. He had a wife. And then he had one later on, which his sister and his brother didn't like that too well. They didn't like that he had another wife. And then the Mosai stepped in and said, hey, listen, mind your business. Mind your business. You ain't got nothing to do with this. This is what I'm doing. He could have 2 wives. But he never had 2 wives in Egypt, in the land of captivity. From what I understand and read, that after we fled from Egypt through the Red Sea into the wilderness, his wives met him over there.
Yeah, they met him, right.
All right? But he never took care of Egypt. So think about it. Why the hell I'm going to have
2 wives?
2 wives in this damn captivity? That's the way I think. All right? That's the way I think. Why the hell am I going to do that here? You know, it's not many cases of that. All right? But it is legal. Now, you start getting this word up now. This is what I think now. You start getting to spiritual level now. John the Baptist, he didn't even have a wife.
Nope.
Did Yahushua have a wife?
Nope. Nah. They try to say he did.
Yahushua had no wife. He had no time. Did Paul have a wife?
Nah.
When you start, and this the end times now. That's how I'm looking. This the end times now. We got to get to the point where we got to be like what? John the Baptist. You want to be like Yahushua. You want to be like Paul. He said David had 2 wives. I bet you had more. I think David had 8. He had 8 wives. Remember, he's a king. David was a king. Solomon had what? 700 wives. That's almost unimaginable, right? But with the level he was on, he was a king, all right? And in basically, well, it wasn't in our own kingdom, but that's how glorious it was. Okay, and what happened to him? Initially got him in what? Trouble. Okay, now, if you go back to history, it's not really practiced a lot. Polygamy is not practiced a lot in the history of the Bible. Some of the prominent people didn't have 2 wives or more.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahushua Bahashem, Recha HaKodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of Great Millstone. Honors as well to you, brethren, all you supporters of this truth, this ministry. Shalom to the elect. So anyway, it seems as the HLDC tends to have the same doctrine as the IUIC. So I don't know much of the history of the One West, but as the split happened, did they kind of incorporate their doctrine in the schools, or did they take a payoff? Because a lot of them 501c3s, which I don't know if they have. I honestly didn't look. We see Bishop Nathaniel's worth $150 million. Now before that, and I looked into the tax records, which, I just conveniently did. as we went on his site and found out what he was worth. And it seems like the time that he was funded is the time the doctrines changed. Just like the one body in Yahushua, when they got their donation of over $1 million, almost $2 million, the name from one body in Yahushua went on down to one body. And then they start breaking down the Hebrew doctrine wrong, and then they start going into one wife, Christ, and the white man is not who we say he is. And it seems like it happens to these camps that get these benefits. So it looks like HODC, I'm looking on their channel, unless they have another page, they haven't been out in a year. And it was one video for 59 minutes of them out a year ago. 1 year. The rest is sit downs. All right, 1 year ago, sit downs. Now they're live. They're doing lives because a lot of people doing lives. They on fire. 3 days ago, well, not on fire. 3 weeks ago, and it's all sit downs. That's all they're doing. They're doing sit downs, and on here it just shows them going out 1 year. Like, I don't know the concept, or, well, we know that something is wrong where they are not now going out and pushing weekly. Like when I first came into the truth, I used to see this group out every week with the signs pushing, right? But we don't see that now, unless they have another channel that I don't know about. But anyway, I go further into the lesson. They're teaching that now that in this society, you're only allowed to have one wife. That's what they're teaching. So many things wrong with their doctrine. Not that I have some freakism going on and I want a whole bunch of wives. Not saying that. Which is nothing wrong with that, right? How can these men tell other people, other men, not to have more than one wife? Now, Paul said those that had wives be as though they had none, whether they got 1, 2, 3, or 4. A bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife, which was going into the wives who were sleeping around and had different men. Then he went into Yahushua. Show me Yahushua, right, that went anywhere and rebuked any man, right, for having more than one wife. Now, he rebuked the woman at the well, the heathen woman, for having 5 husbands, but you don't see it in there. And then he said it wasn't a practice of the Jews, of the Israelites. Like, what is he talking about? It was clearly a practice. It wasn't prevalent. It was so many things he said, and I'm looking at this video. I can't believe what I'm hearing, right? But he says in captivity, this is what they say. They say in captivity, you can't have more than one wife. But when the time comes and you leave captivity, then we can have more than one wife. Now, how's that going to work? You're in a school with one wife. The man got one wife, right? The scripture says, follow the laws to the best of your ability, right? So you got one wife. All hell breaks loose. And then all the wives want to come. You really think the women that's been, they've been geared up or taught to have one wife, to be one wife, you really think they're going to look at this now and say, uh-oh, I can believe now. That's going to be way more turmoil. This is crazy, man. So let's go to Exodus. I got to get a scripture. Exodus 2. This is called the oppression of the new Pharaoh. This is when Joseph passed. I'm going to just read it. And King Ramses II, I believe, Pharaoh Ramses II, says, now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, right? Lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when they falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set them over taskmasters to afflict them in burdens. And they built for Pharaoh's treasure cities in Pithom and Ramses, right? But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. When you go into multiplying, This is just not one man and one woman, right? That's not what that's talking about. The more they multiplied. A woman can only get pregnant in a 9-month cycle, or however it goes. How the hell are they multiplying like that? That means in one year, a man he can only have one child. Unless he got twins or triplets. This is crazy for someone to think that. In your captivity, you should only, you can't have more than one wife. Now, we suggest those that have wives be as though they had none, or don't have a woman at all, if that's the case. But you can't push a doctrine and teach that a man can only have one wife. Then he goes into Noah and how they populated the earth. Did you know, according to the Bible, scholars are still trying to scramble and come together, the figures of the Bible that were men was more prominent than the women. That's why a lot of the women names were not used unless there was a specific event, such as I can't remember the name, but when you deal with Sarah and Hagar and the Jacob's wife or something like that, Rachel, Leah, and so forth and so on, then those names would be mentioned. Ruth, then that name would be mentioned. But you don't see them mentioning all of Solomon's wives. At least I don't think they did. And then there was situations where there was a whole lot more wives and women involved, but it was not needed or necessary to mention. So he goes on to talk about Noah, which the scholars say he had 4 wives. You know, when you really get down to the nitty gritty, the earth got repopulated. And how did that happen? Anyway, so in other words, the law, I mean, these guys are making their own law. The law is, remember Rehoboam? Micaiah, I think her name was. He loved her more than all the other wives. He had a lot of wives, but they say it's according to because he was a king. So in other words, unless you're a king, and because you're in captivity, right, you're only supposed to you can have more than one wife. But he had mentioned that Solomon wasn't the situation he was in, but he had a lot of wives. So these kings, right, these bishops and these elders, right, who's well off financially, so shouldn't they be able to have more than one wife then? So in other words, you can have more than one wife. It's lawful to have more than one wife, but the new law is in captivity you can only have one wife. We don't see that anywhere in the Bible. So these guys are just adding to the scriptures, as Revelation 22 says. They're just adding to the scriptures. Let's go to Romans. This is weird, man. Romans 12:3. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. Right? Even if you're going in the mindset, I can have 8 wives. But one man can have 8, and another man might only be able to have 1. That should be your choice and your measure, right? It goes on to say, but to think soberly, right, according to Yahweh, have dealt to every man the measure of faith. So it's whatever measure is given to you to be able to handle a circumstance. Plus, let's read Isaiah 4. Isaiah 4:1. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread, right, and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by the name to take away our reproach. Now, why is this so different today? Because in Babylon and Egypt today, the women are exalted, as in Babylon, but they're exalted financially, right? So if you're a brother in the faith, and a woman has a pretty good job making 6 figures, I'm not saying go after rich women, I'm just saying, or women well-to-do. If you got a wife and you have a woman that want to bring hers to the table with you and she will submit under you, where's the problem? See, they're trying to keep the old notion that, you know, the man has to lead, the man, he must make more money, he must have this and have that. But here clearly it says the woman will bring their own. which means to bring to help you. Right? We're still one as men and women. There will be a certain sect of women who understand what is going on and who understand that they're trying to fund them to not depend on a husband, right? And that's what feminism has done. But this is what they're teaching, that you must make a certain amount of money. And let's say you do make a certain amount of money, right? We know in the households today it requires more. You got to have the woman working too. In an average household, the woman got to work too. It just so happened women may make more money than you. They fund more of those nurses and those offices, these women in those businesses. Come on, man. You can't tell a man he can't have more than one wife. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. There's a reason why there's more women born than men. So when these schools are loaded, right, as I said before, when all those women are in those schools and they go to a man, what about all the women that are left out? There's always going to be an imbalance somewhere, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 17. Deuteronomy 17 and 17. It says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shalt possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me, like as the nations that are about me. Now we go into the story of Saul. That's why the Lord gave the children of Israel Saul, the king, the big, tall king, right? But what happened to Saul? That's why the Lord said, I am the king over all the earth. I am the Lord your God. You don't really need some big king to run, but that's for the children of Israel, right? Thou shalt in any wise set a king over thee. This is what it's saying. Whom the Lord thy God shall choose. Right? One from among thy brethren, meaning you're not supposed to, the Lord will choose a man of the brethren to be your king over you. Remember, our people was adopting the practices of Egypt. Right? Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother, but he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt. That's what he's talking about when we continue to read. Don't take the other nations and put them over you, right? And multiply the horses and basically follow the mannerisms of Egypt. That's what he's saying. To the end, it says, to the end that he should multiply horses for as much as the Lord have said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way, neither shall he multiply wives to himself. That's what, when you get the understanding of that, you can go to the commentary, I did videos on that. That was going back into the mannerisms of the other nations, right, of Egypt. The following of Egypt and the mannerisms of Egypt, right? Don't go back and do it, the things that they do, not unto the laws that is presented unto us, because that's what they were doing, right? And when they was multiplying themselves wives, some of those wives, when you go back into them heathens, they were already, some of them were married to other men. That's why when you see Paul said, a bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife, because he was talking about the wives that was already married to other men, and the only way the bishop will be blameless, right, is not to heap to himself more wives. Now, those bishops had wives. In fact, you can read a lot of the commentary. Some of the bishops had multiple wives. They had many wives. But then they would go into church, and then these women would see these great bishops, and you know how women are. They see a man with 10 wives. They want to be part of the connection too. And Paul said no. And then what the bishops were doing, they would, if the women became wicked, they would get rid of them, and they would get another woman. And that's why Paul was quoting back what Yahushua said, unless that be for an adultery, because men was just getting rid of their wives. You see? So this all connects. There was nothing wrong with a man. In fact, It was normal for men to have more than one wife. That's why, as I said before, you never seen Yahushua, the one you call Jesus, tell any man, you shall not have but one wife. You don't see that, right? It goes on to say, let's go back, Isaiah 4:1. Let's go to Exodus 21:10. If any man take him another wife, for a woman, for her food and her raiment and her duty of marriage shall not be diminished, right? So you've seen that. I mean, you go into the time of Midian, right? With Moses, he told the men, take all the women and girls that now had laid with men. That's what he said. So you really think they evenly divided and said, well, I'll take one, you take one, and you take one. No, some of them might have took 2, 3, 4 women to themselves. That's how it goes. So it's kind of crazy how these great leaders of Israel have selective switches like feminism. When a woman need, the man's supposed to step up and be a man, but when she don't need, she's equal to him. This is what we see, right? Now we are woken up to the truth. No, the way I think, you should only have one wife. But that's not biblical. But then you say, oh yeah, but when Isaiah 4:1 happens, see, that to me, that's making, the way I'm thinking, that makes me think that you're trying to please the ways of the world of that 501c3. Because you feel when it starts going down, you're not going to need it anyway. Then you can just step in and then jump on board with the Lord. Man, it don't work that way. That's why this group isn't on fire, right? They're completely off, man. Anyway, hope this lesson was edifying. That's all I have on that. Shalom.